While millions know Sue Aikens as the fearless Alaskan survivalist from life below zero, few realize she graduated high school at age 13, took taxis to daycare at age 2, or once slept beside bear cubs she mistook for puppies. From surviving a grizzly attack that left her for dead to earning $4,500 per episode, Sue's most shocking secrets extend far beyond her Arctic survival skills. Here are 15 things you never knew about Sue Aikens from life below zero. Fact 1. Child genius graduate. Most people think they know Sue Aikens as the tough-as-nails survivalist who can handle anything the Alaskan wilderness throws at her. But what many viewers don't realize is that she was actually a child prodigy who graduated from high school when she was just 13 years old. While most kids her age were still figuring out middle school social dynamics and worrying about their first crushes, Sue was already walking across the stage to receive her high school diploma. Sue's remarkable academic achievement came through her enrollment in an accelerated learning program at Lowell Whiteman School, where she was able to fast-track her education at an extraordinary pace. This wasn't just a case of skipping a grade or two like some bright students do, but rather a complete acceleration that saw her finish her entire high school education years ahead of her peers. The fact that she accomplished this during what was already a turbulent period in her life makes it even more impressive. Her advanced intellectual development was apparent from a very early age, according to family accounts. Sue's mother claimed that she began walking when she was only 7 months old, which is significantly earlier than the typical 12 to 15-month time frame for most children. Even more remarkable was that Sue was reportedly speaking in full sentences by the time she reached her second birthday, demonstrating verbal skills that were far beyond what most toddlers display. This early intellectual giftedness would prove to be crucial for Sue's later survival in Alaska, as her quick thinking and problem-solving abilities became essential tools for navigating the countless challenges of living alone in one of the world's most unforgiving environments. Her ability to learn rapidly and adapt to new situations, which was evident even as a young child, would serve her well when she was later abandoned in Alaska and had to master survival skills that most adults never need to develop. The combination of being intellectually gifted while also dealing with an unstable childhood situation created a unique foundation for the resilient, self-reliant person Sue would eventually become. Fact 2. 2-year-old taxi rider. When most parents are still worried about their toddlers wandering off in the grocery store, Sue Aikens was already navigating the streets of Chicago completely on her own as a 2-year-old, taking solo taxi rides to daycare every single morning. This extraordinary routine began when Sue was just barely out of diapers, and it reveals just how unconventional her childhood really was from the very beginning. According to Sue herself, her mother would leave taxi fare on the kitchen table each morning, and little Sue would walk outside by herself, hail a cab, and ride to daycare without any adult supervision whatsoever. This wasn't a one-time occurrence or an emergency situation, but rather Sue's normal daily routine when she was only 2 years old. The fact that a toddler was capable of handling this level of independence speaks to both her remarkable early development and the unusual circumstances of her upbringing. The logistics of this arrangement are mind-boggling when you really think about it. A 2-year-old would need to understand the concept of money, know how to communicate her destination to the taxi driver, and have enough awareness to safely navigate getting in and out of vehicles with strangers. Most children that age are still learning basic concepts like colors and counting. Yet Sue was already managing what many adults would consider a complex daily commute. This early independence wasn't necessarily by choice, but rather born out of necessity, as her mother's lifestyle and priorities created situations where Sue had to learn self-reliance at an age when most children are completely dependent on their parents for everything. The experience of being thrust into adult-level responsibility while still a toddler helped shape the fierce independence and problem-solving skills that would later become essential for her survival in the Alaskan wilderness. This unusual childhood routine also demonstrates that Sue's ability to handle extreme situations and think on her feet wasn't something she developed later in life, but rather a skill set that was forced upon her from her earliest memories in the suburbs of Chicago. Fact 3. Bear cubs, mistaken for puppies. Long before Sue Aikens became famous for her encounters with dangerous wildlife on Life Below Zero, she had what could have been a fatal run-in with bears as a small child, but the incident ended peacefully, thanks to her innocent mistake and a stroke of incredible luck. During a family vacation to Yellowstone National Park sometime in the 1960s, young Sue managed to wander away from her parents and disappeared into the wilderness, completely unnoticed, which would be terrifying enough under normal circumstances. What happened next sounds like something out of a Disney movie, but it actually occurred in real life with potentially deadly consequences that Sue was too young to understand at the time. When her frantic family finally found her after what must have been hours of searching through the vast national park, they discovered little Sue peacefully sleeping alongside a group of bear cubs, completely unaware that she was cuddling with some of the most dangerous baby animals in North America. The reason Sue ended up in this incredibly risky situation was because she had genuinely mistaken the bear cubs for puppies. Which makes sense when you consider that young bear cubs can indeed look quite similar to fluffy dogs, especially to a small child who might not know the difference. Her natural love of animals, combined with the innocent fearlessness that many young children possess, led her to approach what she thought were friendly puppies and settle down for a nap with her new furry friends. The most remarkable part of this story is that Sue emerged from the encounter completely unharmed. Despite the fact that mother bears are notoriously protective of their cubs and will attack anything they perceive as a threat, the fact that the mother bear either wasn't nearby or somehow didn't view the sleeping child as dangerous enough to warrant an attack is nothing short of miraculous, as this type of close contact with bear cubs typically results in serious injury or death. This early childhood incident seems to foreshadow Sue's later life, where her natural affinity for wildlife and her fearless approach to dangerous situations would become defining characteristics of her survival lifestyle in Alaska. Fact 4. Abandoned in Alaska at 12. What sounds like the plot of a survival movie actually happened to Sue Aikens in real life when she was just 12 years old, as her mother made the shocking decision to abandon her daughter in the Alaskan wilderness with nothing more than a paper bag containing her belongings. This life-changing event occurred sometime between the late 1960s and early 1970s, when Sue's parents were going through a divorce that would completely upend her world in ways that most children could never imagine. According to Sue's own account of this traumatic period, which she shared during an appearance on The Ellen Show, her mother simply told her one day that they were moving to Alaska and handed her a paper bag to pack her things. Sue recalled her mother saying something along the lines of wanting to leave her father because divorce was happening but wasn't popular back then. So they needed to start fresh, somewhere completely different. What Sue didn't realize at the time was that this wouldn't be a new beginning for both of them, but rather the moment when her mother would walk out of her life entirely. After arriving in Alaska, Sue's mother took her to stay with a family friend in a village located about 50 miles north of Fairbanks, which was already an incredibly remote location by most people's standards. However, instead of settling in to start their new life together, Sue's mother soon returned to the lower 48 states, leaving her 12-year-old daughter completely alone in one of the harshest environments on Earth without any warning or preparation. Faced with the reality of having to survive on her own in the Alaskan wilderness, Sue was fortunate enough to encounter what she describes as an old Alaskan sourdough, which is a term used for longtime Alaska residents who have learned to live off the land. This experienced outdoorsman took pity on the abandoned child and taught her essential survival skills, including how to hunt with a rifle, which became one of the most important lessons of her life and laid the foundation for everything she would later accomplish in the wilderness. Fact 5. Hollywood extra before fame. Years before Sue Aikens became a household name through Life Below Zero, she had a brief and completely unexpected brush with Hollywood when she appeared as an extra in the popular 1980s television series Jake and the Fat Man, which starred William Conrad and Joe Penny as an unlikely crime-fighting duo. This surprising connection to the entertainment industry happened during what Sue describes as a brief work trip to California, long before anyone could have imagined that this Alaskan survivalist would eventually become a television star in her own right. Jake and the Fat Man was a successful crime drama that ran from 1987 to 1992 on CBS, following the adventures of a veteran district attorney nicknamed Fat Man and his young investigator Jake, as they solved cases in Hawaii and later Los Angeles. The show was quite popular during its 5-season run and featured many guest stars and background actors throughout its episodes, including Sue during her unexpected Hollywood detour. What makes this fact particularly interesting is how completely different Sue's life trajectory was at that time compared to where she would eventually end up. While she was temporarily in California, working as an extra on a mainstream television production, her heart and her future were already tied to the remote wilderness of Alaska, where she would spend decades perfecting the survival skills that would later make her famous on a completely different type of television show. The contrast between her brief appearance in a polished Hollywood production and her later starring role in a raw, unscripted documentary series about surviving in one of the world's most challenging environments couldn't be more dramatic. Sue's time as an extra on Jake and the Fat Man represents a fascinating footnote in her personal history, showing that even before she became known for her incredible toughness and self-reliance in the Alaskan wilderness, she was already crossing paths with the television industry that would eventually make her a star. This early exposure to television production, even in such a small capacity, may have given Sue some insight into how the entertainment business works, which could have been helpful when she later became the central figure of Life Below Zero. Fact 6. 3 marriages, 2 deaths. Sue Aikens has experienced an unusually tragic pattern in her romantic life, having been married 3 times, with 2 of those marriages ending not in divorce, but in the death of her husband, leading her to develop a darkly humorous perspective about her apparent bad luck in love. This series of personal losses would be devastating for anyone. But Sue has managed to cope with these tragedies by using her characteristic blend of toughness and self-deprecating humor to process the pain. Her first marriage ended when her husband succumbed to a brain tumor, which was obviously a devastating loss for Sue during what should have been a happy period of her life. The details about this first husband remain largely private, as Sue has chosen not to share much information about him publicly, including even his name, which suggests that this loss may still be particularly painful for her to discuss. Sue's second marriage was to a British man named Eddie James Aikens, whom she married on June 13, 1987. And this relationship lasted much longer, spanning 17 years before they divorced. In 2004, Eddie worked as a barber, and the couple lived together in Portland, Oregon, where they had 2 children together, a son and a daughter. Despite their divorce, Sue and Eddie remained on good terms, and she was deeply saddened when he passed away in 2009, just a few years after their marriage had officially ended. Sue even attended Eddie's funeral and wrote a heartfelt tribute on his obituary page, where she reflected on their relationship and mentioned how he would come up behind her and say, "I love you, Mrs. Aikens," even after they were divorced. Her message showed that despite their marriage not working out, they had maintained a friendship and mutual respect until his death. In typical Sue fashion, she has dealt with these tragic losses by finding humor in the darkness. once tweeting that she had been married 3 times and jokingly noted that 2 died to get away from her, followed by, "I might be a handful," which shows her ability to use humor as a coping mechanism while acknowledging the unusual and sad pattern in her personal relationships. Fact 7. Thermometer maxes out at -100 degrees Fahrenheit. When Sue Aikens talks about the extreme cold at her Kavik River camp, she's not just dealing with the kind of winter weather that most people complain about, but rather temperatures so brutally cold that her thermometer literally can't even measure them because they go beyond the instrument's maximum capacity. Sue's thermometer only goes down to 100 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, which is already cold enough to cause frostbite in minutes and kill most people who aren't properly prepared. But she has experienced temperatures at her camp that have been what she describes as markedly colder than even that extreme measurement. To put this in perspective for people who have never experienced truly Arctic conditions, 100 degrees below 0 is so cold that exposed skin can freeze solid in less than 5 minutes. Metal becomes brittle and can shatter like glass, and even breathing the air can cause serious damage to your lungs and throat. Most thermometers designed for normal use don't even go below -40 degrees Fahrenheit. So, the fact that Sue needs a specialized instrument that measures down to -100 degrees shows just how extreme her living conditions really are. But what makes this even more incredible is that Sue has experienced temperatures that push beyond even that extreme limit, meaning she's living in conditions that are literally off the charts in terms of cold. When you factor in the wind chill effect, which can make already frigid temperatures feel significantly colder, Sue estimates that the effective temperature at her camp can reach as low as 200 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, which is approaching the kind of extreme cold found in outer space. Despite these absolutely brutal conditions that would quickly kill most people, Sue doesn't get the luxury of staying inside and waiting for warmer weather. As she puts it, regardless of how cold it gets, she still has to go outside and do her daily chores to maintain the camp and keep herself alive, because in her situation, there's no such thing as a snow day or calling in sick due to weather conditions that would shut down entire cities in the lower 48 states. Fact 8. Trains Army's cool school soldiers. Beyond her fame as a reality television star, Sue Aikens has secretly been involved in training some of the toughest soldiers in the United States military through her work with the Army's specialized survival program known as Cool School, where she helps teach military personnel how to survive in the most extreme Arctic conditions imaginable. This little-known aspect of Sue's life showcases her expertise in a completely different way, as she works with trained soldiers who think they're prepared for anything until they experience the brutal reality of trying to survive in Alaska's unforgiving wilderness. The Cool School program is designed to push military personnel to their absolute limits by dropping them off in remote locations during harsh winter conditions with almost no supplies, forcing them to rely entirely on their survival skills and mental toughness to make it to a predetermined extraction point. According to Sue, the Army instructors will literally drop soldiers off in temperatures of 30 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit or even colder, and then essentially tell them good luck as they're left to figure out how to survive with ridiculously minimal equipment. Sue describes the supplies these soldiers are given as absurdly inadequate for the challenge they face, mentioning that they might receive something as basic as a pack of bubble gum and a shovel to help them survive in conditions that can kill an unprepared person within hours. This isn't an exaggeration for dramatic effect, but rather an accurate description of how the military tests whether their personnel can think creatively and use absolutely any available resource to stay alive when everything goes wrong. When Sue works with these soldiers during their training, she often starts by asking them a simple question about what they notice when they look across the snowy landscape, and most of them initially give obvious answers like snow. However, Sue's job is to teach them how to see beyond the obvious and recognize the subtle signs and resources that could mean the difference between life and death, such as reading wind patterns, identifying areas where edible plants might be found, or recognizing safe places to build shelter that won't collapse or expose them to deadly wind chill. Fact 9. Lawsuit over forced dangerous stunts. In February 2017, Sue Aikens shocked fans and the television industry by filing a $3 million lawsuit against the producers of Life Below Zero, alleging that the show had forced her to participate in dangerous and potentially deadly stunts that were completely fabricated for dramatic effect, rather than being genuine documentation of her real life. The lawsuit specifically targeted producer Aaron Melman, whom Sue accused of being verbally abusive and intimidating toward both her and other crew members, while demanding that she perform actions that put her life at serious risk. The incident that sparked the lawsuit occurred during the filming of a Season 5 episode titled The Crash, which aired sometime between June and December of 2015, but the actual filming took place in February of that year when a production crew had set up at Sue's remote camp. According to Sue's legal complaint, producer Melman forced her to drive her snow machine into what's known as overflow conditions, which happens when water flows over river ice and creates extremely dangerous, unpredictable surface conditions that can cause vehicles to crash through the ice. Sue had originally suggested a safer alternative for the episode, proposing that she leave her tent and sled to hunt for ptarmigan, which would have been both authentic to her lifestyle and provided the meat and feathers she actually needed for survival. However, Melman rejected this real-life scenario in favor of forcing Sue to travel down the river into the dangerous overflow area, despite her objections about the apparent dangers involved in driving her snow machine over unstable ice conditions. The lawsuit alleged that during this forced stunt, Sue was badly injured when her snow machine crashed, but instead of immediately calling for medical help, Melman was more interested in capturing dramatic footage of Sue's pain and suffering. According to the complaint, Sue was made to wait for proper medical treatment while the crew filmed her walking while injured, and she was exposed to temperatures of 15 to 20 degrees below zero. After much of her winter gear was removed during rescue attempts, which could have easily resulted in life-threatening hypothermia or frostbite. Fact 10. Highest paid cast member. While most reality television shows keep their cast salaries under wraps, reports have revealed that Sue Aikens earns an impressive $4,500 per episode of Life Below Zero, which adds up to approximately $200,000 per year and makes her one of the highest-paid stars on the entire show. This substantial income is particularly noteworthy when you consider that Sue is essentially being paid to live the same lifestyle she was already living before the cameras started rolling, making her one of the few reality television personalities who doesn't have to dramatically change their behavior or living situation to earn their paycheck. The fact that Sue commands such a high salary compared to other cast members reflects both her importance to the show's success and her status as one of the original stars who has appeared in every season since Life Below Zero, premiered in 2013. Her compelling personality, incredible survival skills, and the dramatic nature of her isolated lifestyle at Kavik River Camp have made her segments some of the most popular and memorable parts of the series, which naturally translates into negotiating power when it comes to contract discussions. To put Sue's earnings in perspective, her per-episode rate of $4,500 means that she makes more money from a single episode than many people earn in an entire month at traditional jobs, and her annual income of $200,000 places her well into the upper middle-class income bracket, despite living in one of the most remote and challenging locations on Earth. This level of compensation also reflects the physical and emotional demands of her role, as she's not just acting for the cameras, but actually living in life-threatening conditions while dealing with the stress of having a film crew document her most vulnerable and dangerous moments. The financial success that Sue has achieved through Life Below Zero has undoubtedly provided her with more security and resources than she would have had living her subsistence lifestyle without the television income, allowing her to better maintain her remote camp, purchase necessary supplies and equipment, and plan for her future while still maintaining the authentic wilderness lifestyle that made her famous in the first place. Fact 11. Executive producer of Mel Gibson film. In a surprising career move that shows just how far Sue Aikens has expanded beyond her reality television fame, she served as an executive producer on the 2022 action thriller film Panama, which starred Academy Award winner Mel Gibson alongside actors Cole Hauser and Kate Katzman. This unexpected venture into Hollywood film production represents a dramatic departure from Sue's usual work, documenting her survival lifestyle in the Alaskan wilderness, and it demonstrates that her business interests and entertainment industry connections extend far beyond what most people would expect from someone who lives alone in the Arctic. Panama is an action-packed thriller that tells the story of an ex-Marine who becomes involved in a dangerous mission in Panama during the 1980s, featuring the kind of high-stakes drama and intense action sequences that are completely different from the documentary-style reality television that made Sue famous. The film showcased Mel Gibson in one of his more recent acting roles, while Cole Hauser, who is known for his work in shows like Yellowstone, played a significant supporting character in the production. Sue's role as executive producer on this project would have involved significant behind-the-scenes responsibilities, including helping to oversee various aspects of the film's development, production, and financing, which requires a completely different skill set than surviving in the wilderness or appearing on camera for reality television. Executive producers typically have substantial input on creative decisions, help coordinate between different departments, and often contribute to the financial backing of a project, meaning that Sue's involvement went far beyond just lending her name to the production. The fact that Sue was able to transition from being known primarily as a survival expert and reality television personality to working as an executive producer on a major Hollywood film featuring established stars like Mel Gibson shows the level of business acumen and industry connections she has developed over the years. This project also demonstrates that Sue has been actively diversifying her career portfolio beyond Life Below Zero, establishing herself as a legitimate player in the entertainment industry rather than just someone who happens to appear on television. Fact 12. 75-pound weight loss mystery. In 2020, Sue Aikens surprised fans and sparked widespread speculation when she revealed a dramatic 75-pound weight loss that completely transformed her appearance, leading many viewers to assume that she had undergone weight loss surgery or some other medical procedure to achieve such significant results. The change was so noticeable that it became a major topic of discussion among Life Below Zero fans, who couldn't help but wonder how someone living in such an isolated and challenging environment had managed to lose so much weight while maintaining her demanding survival lifestyle. However, Sue quickly set the record straight by explaining that her impressive weight loss was actually the result of a committed lifestyle change and exercise program that she had begun in October of 2018, rather than any kind of surgical intervention or medical procedure. The motivation behind her decision to focus on her health and fitness wasn't vanity or a desire to look different on television, but rather a practical necessity related to healing from a series of serious injuries that had been affecting her quality of life for over a decade. The injuries that prompted Sue's fitness journey dated back to her terrifying bear attack in 2007, which had left her with significant tears around her hips and other physical damage that had never fully healed properly. Over the years, these old injuries had continued to cause her pain and limit her mobility, which was particularly problematic for someone whose survival depends on being able to perform physically demanding tasks in an extremely harsh environment where any weakness or limitation could potentially be life-threatening. Sue realized that in order to allow her body to heal properly and to ensure that she could continue living her chosen lifestyle without being held back by chronic pain and physical limitations, she needed to get herself into better shape and lose the excess weight that was putting additional strain on her already damaged joints and muscles. Her 75-pound weight loss was therefore not just about appearance, but rather a strategic decision to improve her overall health, reduce pain, and maintain her ability to survive and thrive in one of the world's most challenging environments. Fact 13. Self-performed medical procedures. When most people get injured or sick, they head to the doctor or emergency room. But Sue Aikens has become her own medical practitioner out of necessity, performing procedures on herself that would make most people squeamish, including stitching up her own wounds and treating various injuries without any professional medical assistance. This isn't because Sue enjoys playing doctor or thinks she knows better than trained medical professionals, but rather because the logistics and costs of getting medical care from her remote location make it completely impractical for anything but the most serious emergencies. Sue's matter-of-fact explanation of why she handles her own medical care reveals just how isolated and expensive life at Kavik River Camp really is, as she puts it in her characteristically blunt way. The doctor is 500 miles to town and 500 miles back after my appointment. That's $12,000 each way. There's not much I want to see a doctor for that I'm willing to give him 24 grand. This means that a simple doctor's visit that might cost a few $100s in a normal location would end up costing Sue nearly $25,000 when you factor in the charter flight costs required to get her to and from the nearest medical facility. The financial reality of her situation has forced Sue to become remarkably skilled at basic medical procedures, and she has developed the knowledge and confidence to handle everything, from cleaning and stitching cuts to treating infections and managing pain from various injuries. This self-reliance extends beyond just emergency situations, as Sue also has to maintain her general health and handle routine medical issues that most people would automatically seek professional help for, requiring her to stock medical supplies and educate herself about proper treatment procedures. Sue's approach to self-treatment also reflects the broader reality of living in such an extreme environment, where any serious injury or medical emergency could potentially be life-threatening not because of the injury itself, but because of the time and expense required to get proper medical attention. This has made her incredibly cautious about avoiding unnecessary risks, while also forcing her to develop medical skills that go far beyond basic first aid. Fact 14. Native North American heritage. While many fans of Life Below Zero know Sue Aikens as a tough survivalist who has mastered life in the Arctic, fewer people are aware that she is actually of Native North American heritage, which helps explain her deep connection to the land and her remarkable ability to thrive in an environment that would quickly defeat most people who weren't raised with traditional knowledge and respect for the natural world. This ancestral background provides important context for understanding how Sue has been able to not just survive, but actually flourish in one of the most challenging environments on Earth for over 2 decades. Sue's native heritage likely contributed to her intuitive understanding of how to read the land, recognize natural resources, and adapt to the rhythms of Arctic life in ways that go beyond what can be learned from books or survival training programs. Traditional native knowledge systems include generations of accumulated wisdom about living sustainably in harsh climates, understanding animal behavior patterns, identifying edible and medicinal plants, and developing the mental resilience needed to cope with isolation and extreme conditions that are fundamental to survival in places like northern Alaska. For more than 20 years, Sue has made the area along the Kavik River her permanent home. establishing herself as the sole year-round resident of a region that sits nearly 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle, which puts her well into the zone where most of the year is spent in either complete darkness or complete daylight, depending on the season. This location places her in an area that has been traditionally inhabited by indigenous peoples for thousands of years, and her ability to maintain a sustainable lifestyle there reflects both her personal determination and the cultural knowledge that comes from her native ancestry. The fact that Sue has been able to maintain her residence at Kavik River Camp for over 2 decades through countless Arctic winters and summers, extreme weather events, wildlife encounters, and the constant challenges of living completely off the grid demonstrates a level of adaptation and connection to the environment that goes beyond what most people could achieve through willpower alone, suggesting that her heritage has provided her with both practical knowledge and spiritual grounding that supports her remarkable lifestyle. Fact 15. Show's cancellation after 23 seasons. After an incredible 11-year run that made it one of National Geographic's most successful reality series, Life Below Zero was officially canceled by Disney and National Geographic in 2024, with the 23rd season that aired in early 2025, marking the end of the groundbreaking show that introduced millions of viewers to the harsh realities of surviving in remote Alaska. This cancellation brought to a close what had become the network's flagship reality television program, ending an era that had spawned multiple spin-offs and established several cast members as household names in the survival and outdoor adventure genre. Sue Aikens holds the remarkable distinction of being one of the original cast members who appeared in every single season, from the show's premiere on May 19, 2013, all the way through its final episode, making her one of the longest-running stars in reality television history, and certainly the most consistent presence throughout Life Below Zero's entire broadcast run. Her segments documenting life at Kavik River Camp became some of the most popular and memorable parts of the series, and her tough-talking, no-nonsense approach to wilderness survival helped define the show's authentic and unvarnished portrayal of what it really takes to live off the grid in one of the world's most unforgiving environments. The show's cancellation came as part of broader changes in the television industry, where streaming services and changing viewer preferences have led to the cancellation of many long-running cable reality programs, even successful ones that had maintained steady audiences and critical acclaim throughout their runs. Life Below Zero had earned multiple Emmy nominations and awards during its time on the air, and it had successfully launched several spin-off series, including Life Below Zero, Next Generation, and Life Below Zero. First, Alaskans, demonstrating the popularity and cultural impact of the original concept. Cast member Chip Hailstone confirmed the cancellation on social media, writing that Life Below Zero has run its course. No contract, no Life Below Zero, while Sue herself indicated that she had reached out to corporate representatives for clarification about the show's future, suggesting that the cancellation may have come as a surprise to some of the longtime cast members who had built their lives around participating in the series.